Today, we're going to talk about a man whose legacy is so powerful, so controversial, that a battle over his name is still being fought, a full 100 years after he became a global figure. We're talking about Marcus Garvey.
Just look at this picture. It gives you a real feel for the scale and the spirit of the Garvey movement. I mean, on the streets of Harlem, in cities all around the world, his Universal Negro Improvement Association, the UNIA, was this incredible, vibrant display of Black pride and a really bold vision for the future.
And that leads us to the big question, right? If the movement was this influential, what exactly happened? And why, a whole century later, is the fight to clear his name hotter than ever? And make no mistake, this isn't some dusty old history debate. Right now, as we speak, Garvey's own son, Dr. Julius Garvey, is working with members of the U.S. Congress, actively petitioning the White House for a posthumous pardon. They're arguing that his conviction was never about justice. It was politically motivated from the start. So, to really get why this matters so much today, we have to go back. We need to understand the man himself and the absolutely monumental movement he built. Let's dig into the global vision of Garveyism. Marcus Mosiah Garvey. He started from pretty humble beginnings in Jamaica. He was the son of a stonemason, but he was driven and he educated himself. And from that, he would go on to create one of the largest mass movements of Black people in history. Now, at the very heart of his work was this idea, Pan-Africanism. And it wasn't just about pride, you see. It was a political philosophy, an economic one too. The ultimate goal? To unite the entire African diaspora and build a self-sufficient independent nation. And Garvey himself said it best with this quote. He believed that knowing yourself, knowing your history, was the absolute foundation for determining your own future. And that message resonated with millions of people who felt cut off from their own heritage. And this wasn't just some abstract idea. He turned that philosophy into a massive, functioning organization, the UNIA. It wasn't just talk. It had businesses, a newspaper, the Negro World that was read by millions, and even its own aid groups like the Black Cross nurses, who you actually saw marching in that first image. It was like a nation within nations. So he built this nation within nations. But what does every great nation need? An economy. And for Garvey, that economy was going to be built around his most ambitious project of all, the Black Star Line. The vision here was absolutely incredible. A whole fleet of ships, all owned, operated, and funded by Black people. It was supposed to be the engine of global Black commerce, a physical bridge connecting the diaspora, and, of course, the way to make the Back to Africa movement a reality. It was this massive symbol of hope and economic independence. So, how on earth did this incredible dream become the very thing that led to his downfall? Well, this is it. This is the moment it all came crashing down. In 1923, Marcus Garvey was convicted of mail fraud. The charge was connected to selling stock in the Black Star Line, and he was sentenced to 5 years in prison. But, you gotta ask, was it really that simple? Was this a straightforward case of fraud, or was there something else going on behind the scenes? This question is really at the heart of the whole century-long fight to clear his name. Okay, so to really understand the controversy, you have to look at who was watching him. The FBI, under a very young J. Edgar Hoover, saw Garvey's power to unify people as a major threat, and they watched him relentlessly. In the end, his conviction came down to a single charge related to an ad for a ship the company was already in the process of buying. And here's the crucial part. The government's own investigation found zero proof that Garvey ever personally pocketed any of the money. And the result of that conviction? Well, the contrast is just shocking. On one side, you have the proud, visionary leader, and on the other, his booking photo from the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. It was such a dramatic fall from grace, and for his millions of followers, it was absolutely devastating. But this is where the story gets really interesting. Because imprisoning the man, well, that didn't imprison the idea. In fact, you could argue it just made it even more powerful, cementing his legacy for good. So after just 2 years in prison, his sentence was commuted. But he was immediately deported to Jamaica, and he was never allowed to return to the United States. But his teachings, they took root. Back in Jamaica, he became a prophetic figure for the brand new Rastafari movement. And then decades later, the formal fight for his pardon would officially begin. And you can see the echoes of his influence just everywhere, really, all through the 20th century. His philosophy of self-reliance and Black nationalism, a direct inspiration for the Nation of Islam. His ideas helped lay the groundwork for later civil rights leaders. And, of course, his name was immortalized in the reggae music of artists like Bob Marley, who took his message to a whole new generation. So, all of this brings us right back to where we started. Now that we have the full weight of his story and his undeniable impact on history, we have to go back to that central question. You know what's really telling? Is that even back then, people were uneasy about this whole thing. This is a quote from the U.S. pardon attorney in 1927, who basically admitted that there was a widespread belief the case was unjust when he recommended Garvey's sentence be commuted. So that leaves us with this really big question, a question for us today. When you have a man whose legacy has so clearly outgrown a very questionable conviction, a conviction he never got rich from, but one that destroyed his operations in the U.S., what does justice actually look like 100 years down the road? Because in the end, whether he ever gets that official pardon or not, the message that propelled Marcus Garvey from a stonemason's son to a global icon, that message is still alive and well. It's a message of pure potential and self-belief, captured perfectly in the lyrics he inspired. Up, you mighty race, you can accomplish what you will.